Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. Our show is a production of our non-profit organization, the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF, and its affiliated political committee, CRRH, or the Campaign for the Restoration and Regulation of Hemp. We have a great show for you tonight. We have some interesting hemp news we'll be starting off the show with. Mr. Tim Pate is here to provide musical accompaniment. We'll have some shots of the THCF Medical Gardens. Don Dupay and I will be taking your phone calls as usual. There will be some other surprises, so stay tuned. And as usual, we'll buy a few moments by showing you these entertaining, dancing cannabis leaves. Hemp news starts out this week from a story from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, written by Jerry Smith. Today, which is the 30th of March, 2007, this is a story I never would have dreamed I would be announcing someday. Bob Barr, a former Georgia Republican congressman and anti-drug crusader, has become a lobbyist for the Marijuana Policy Project. The switch marks the latest chapter in the surprising evolution of the four-term lawmaker from Georgia's 7th District, since he lost his seat in 2002. Once termed the worst drug warrior on Capitol Hill by the Libertarian Party, Barr joined the Libertarians last year because he said of the GOP's move, quote, toward big government and disregard toward privacy and civil liberties, end quote. Barr's move puts him in the unusual position of lobbying to overturn a law he had sponsored. In 1999, Congress passed a spending bill for the District of Columbia that included the so-called Barr Amendment, which blocked the district from allowing medical marijuana use, even though 69% of the voters had approved a measure to legalize it. Barr declined to comment for this story, but told the Politico publication that, quote, in light of the tremendous growth of the government power since 9/11, it's forced me and other conservatives to go back and take a renewed look at how big and powerful we want the government to be in people's lives, end quote. Aaron Houston, the project's government relations coordinator for the MPP, or Marijuana Policy Project, said Barr, a former U.S. attorney, will bring gravitas and credibility to the project's lobbying operations, particularly among Republicans. But Representative Mark Souder, a Republican from Indiana and the new drug warrior of Congress, who once stood by Barr in his opposition to legalizing medicinal marijuana, said he was dismayed. Souder said, quote, it is personally disappointing to watch him change from prosecuting drug dealers to defending usage of their product, end quote. Once again, this is a story from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, published today, March 30th, 2007, written by Jerry Smith of Cox News Service. So our next story is courtesy of a new study out of Australia. According to them, a new cannabis therapy is prevalent among HIV and AIDS patients, according to this study. From March 29th from Sydney, Australia, a substantial portion of patients living with HIV or AIDS use cannabis therapeutically to treat symptoms of the disease and or the side effects of prescription medications, according to survey data published in the current issue of the journal AIDS Care. Investigators at the University of New South Wales National Center in HIV Research conducted face-to-face interviews with 408 patients with HIV or AIDS over a one-year period. Of the 408 participants, 244, or 59.8%, reported having used cannabis during the past 6 months. Of these patients, 108, or 44.3%, said they'd used it therapeutically. Those who used cannabis medically were, on average, younger in age, had lower incomes, and had higher CD4 and T cell counts compared with those who reported only using cannabis recreationally. Clinical trial data published in the Annals of Internal Medicine in 2003 also reported that cannabis use by HIV patients was associated with increased CD4 and T cell counts compared to non-users. The authors of the study concluded, quote, "These results show that a substantial portion of people living with HIV/AIDS use marijuana for therapeutic purposes despite substantial legal barriers suggesting that marijuana represents another treatment option in their health management," end quote. Most recently, investigators at the San Francisco General Hospital and the University of California's Pain Clinical Research Center reported in the journal Neurology that inhaling cannabis significantly reduced HIV-associated neuropathy compared to a placebo. The previous studies in the U.S. and Canada indicate that an estimated 25 to 29% of HIV and AIDS patients use cannabis therapeutically. Survey data represented in 2004 at the 15th International AIDS Conference in Thailand reported that AIDS patients who used medical marijuana were 3.3 times more likely to adhere to their antiretroviral therapy regimens than non-cannabis users. The full text of this study, Marijuana as Therapy for People Living with HIV/AIDS, Social and Health Aspects, appears in the February issue of AIDS Care. Our last story tonight is from Cincinnati. The City Council is making cannabis recriminalization an emergency ordinance indefinitely. Members of the Cincinnati, Ohio City Council voted 7-2 this week to make a provisional ordinance criminalizing minor marijuana possession offenses indefinite, despite the law's apparent failure to show a demonstrable reduction in serious crime or so-called drug tourism. The municipal ordinance initially passed by the Cincinnati Council in March 2006 was slated to expire this week. Under the ordinance, marijuana offenders in Cincinnati face up to 30 days in jail and a $250 fine and a criminal record for possessing small quantities of the drug. By contrast, under the Ohio state law, possession of up to 100 grams of marijuana is punishable by a $100 citation and no jail time. That's about 3.5 ounces. Members of the City Council pushed for the ordinance last year, arguing that it would reduce the city's violent crime rate and dissuade citizens of neighboring states traveling to Cincinnati to purchase cannabis. However, according to crime statistics published last week in the Cincinnati Beacon, the number of murders, rapes, burglaries, and robberies in the city had increased since the passage of last year's ordinance. In addition, the percentage of non-Ohio citizens cited under the ordinance remained virtually unchanged from 2005 to 2006. So, once again, the law has no effect. So, it's the definition of insanity. You just keep doing the same thing, expecting it to work. Anyway, that's the end of our Hemp News segment tonight. We are going to have Mr. Tim Pate sing a song here. And how are you doing tonight, Tim?
I'm doing very well, Paul. How are you tonight?
Very well, very well.
Right on. I think I'm just going to do I'm going to do a piece I wrote many years ago called "The Way You Look Tonight." There's no words to it, but just some guitar music.
right, thank you, Tim.
No, actually, I was looking at the buds that they were playing behind me. That's the way you look tonight. Those look pretty nice.
Well, yeah, that was for some of last year's outdoor. I'm looking forward to this year's outdoor.
I know it's planting
starting.
Season. It's
starting to get them ready. They're all ready to go out as soon as a little bit more daylight's out there as we're taping this at the very end of March.
Oh, and the flowers are coming up all over this town.
All right, spring. Spring has sprung.
I know the show is in other towns like Denver. That's probably cold and snowy, and Seattle it's a little wetter.
A couple days ago than Denver, I heard.
Yeah, but I know here in Portland we got flowers everywhere.
We got flowers. Yep.
That is nice. Well, welcome to the show this week. How are you doing, Don?
Pretty good, Paul. Not too bad.
Good. We will be taking your calls tonight. It is the 30th of March, 2007, and if you want, you can call us at 503-288-4448. We'll be taking your calls right up to the top of the hour, and I guess we do have a caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hi. You guys have some good music there. I think Tim Pate should put an album out. I'd like to
He's
get
put
that.
out a couple.
I have.
Did he?
Yeah.
All right.
They're all
Good
sold
deal.
out.
He's sold out right now?
All of them are sold out. And,
I have a CD and DVD duplicator at our office. So
nice. I do have enough music for a couple of more albums, and I've been thinking and working on it and planning it, and it always is a matter of which baby do you kill to put on the next album, because you can only put like 12 or 13 on each one. And thank you for the compliment. I am working on it right now.
Great music. I appreciate it. And also, I have a aeroponic rooter that I just got, and I'm using it for the first time. And what would you guys suggest for a parts per million on the blooming solution? And also, do you keep the machine on when you're taking cuttings, or do you leave it off until all the pods are back in so it doesn't make a mess and spray everywhere?
That's a good question. I think parts per million, you're going to look at something like 300 to 400 parts per million.
So
You don't want to go
low.
especially over 5 or 6,
Yeah.
100 parts per million. But I think what you'd want to do is leave them in a liquid solution until just before you're going to turn the aeroponic thing on. Then put them all in as fast as you can out of the liquid directly into the aeroponic cloner, and then turn it on. I wouldn't have it on at the same time. It'd be a little messy, like you said.
Right.
But you leave them in, some kind of a solution. So you don't want air to get up into the stem veins there.
Right. Understandable. Well, all right. Keep up the good work, guys.
All right. Good luck.
Good night.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks
Those
a lot.
aeroponic cloners work real well. I'd been taking them first. I just took them and put them in dirt. But now with this device, it sprays water on them every little bit, and they root much more frequently, and they grow roots quickly once they do start growing.
Roots get aggressive.
Yeah, aggressive roots. That's a good way to put it.
And that's what we want.
That's true.
Aggressive
It's
roots.
difficult enough to clone, but you got to fight the mold and those
Yes.
kind of things. You got to keep it clean, and it takes maintenance, just like everything else.
Yes.
So we are taking your calls tonight. If you're watching us on the 30th of March, you can call in at 503-288-4448. We've got a clip we'll be showing a little bit later in about 15 more minutes from Hemp for Victory, a 1942 U.S. Department of Agriculture video. So stay tuned for that. We have another caller. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm having a little trouble getting a physician to sign papers from the state for a card for a minor who has multiple autoimmune processes, including autoimmune hepatitis, sclerotic cholangitis,
Well,
ulcerative
they
colitis.
definitely can get, we know doctors who specialize in cannabis therapy, they have to have a parent or guardian's permission, somebody who can take charge of the cannabis and produce
Right,
it
I
for
filled
them.
out all the paperwork. I filled out all the forms, the state forms, and have seen
So,
a couple of
you
her doctors that she sees normally. So now I'm at a point of trying to figure out where I can find another doctor.
Well, we have a whole list of doctors throughout the West, and what we can do is refer you to a doctor. We have a physician referral service for our viewers here in Portland, where we tape this show, and it plays in a few other cities as well. You can call the number that's there on your screen. It's 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. And if you have chronic pain, chronic nausea, AIDS, cancer, glaucoma, autoimmune disease, gastrointestinal ailments like IBS or Crohn's disease, spastic disorders like multiple sclerosis, or neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, or also seizure disorders like epilepsy. All of those things qualify for medical marijuana throughout the West. And we have dozens of doctors who can help you here in Oregon, in Washington, in California, in Hawaii, and in Colorado, coming soon in Nevada. So if you're...
Chlorotic cholangitis and ulcerative colitis.
Yeah, that definitely qualifies as well.
Because I just see her go downstairs and she feels so much better when she comes back.
Right, right.
So,
and we can advise you on various ways of administering cannabis, like vaporization, and for conditions like that, it's CBD in particular that's really the useful medicine for spasms and seizures. Not the, but for nausea, the THC is very useful. So both of them, in combination, provide real relief to people with gastrointestinal ailments.
So with the CBD,
yeah, CBD is in the leaf as well.
That would be the precursor to the THC. So you'd want.
Well, there's about a little bit over 40 unique cannabinoids in cannabis, and those are unique chemicals that aren't found anywhere else in nature, according to current studies. Even though there are some analogs to THC and CBD in the human nervous system, the endocannabinoids, but outside of that, they don't appear in any other plants. But they are part of all animals' neurological systems.
So if you were a care provider, you would be shooting for a high CBD, which means...
Especially for patients with pain, spasms, and seizures, glaucoma. CBD is the useful medicinal agent. For nausea, as an appetite stimulant, which I always like to remind people is bad for me. But also for anxiety and depression, those conditions aren't covered, and PTSD, those conditions aren't covered in Oregon and Washington and Colorado and Hawaii's law, but they are covered in the California law. But it's THC that's useful for those conditions.
I see. Okay, well, that was good information on the CBD level, trying to keep that high for her problems.
And you can get CBD from the leaf that's without the THC. So if you don't need the nausea and the appetite stimulant properties, you just need pain and spastic relief, you can use something from the leaf instead of the flowers.
And that would help with the bloody stool and things like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, hey, thank you for your information and have a good night.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Yeah, if you're in the Portland area and you need a doctor, we have lots of doctors who can help. The number is right there on your screen. It's 503-235-4606. If you're up in the Seattle area, we have a Seattle number. That's 206-878-1701, and there it is, magically popping up on your screen. That's 206-878-1701. And for people in Denver, watching this show in the Denver area, where we also come on every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m., you can call us at 303-403-9996. That's 303-403-9996. And finally, for you people outside of those major cities, if you're watching us on YouTube or on some other location like Spokane or Salem, you can call us toll-free at 1-800-723-0188. That's 1-800-723-0188. And once again, those are all the numbers for physician referrals. You can also call to get involved in the movement to end adult marijuana prohibition and restore industrial hemp, which is something else that our group, the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, is working toward. And we look forward to that day when marijuana is legal and people can grow their own without tax or license, and hemp is free from burden. Now we have another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hello.
Hello, caller.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys fucking suck. You
know, Paul, that gentleman, the previous gentleman, was talking about his wife having problems with stool. And I've said before, if you buy a bottle of this hemp oil, cold-pressed hemp seed oil, which you can buy at Fred Meyer's now, in the refrigerated case, it will work as a stool softener if you take about 3 teaspoons of that.
And you'll get the
accidentally.
omega-6 and omega-3 and omega-9,
Yes.
the essential fatty acids
Yes.
that you need in your diet.
It's good stuff,
keep you
and it
healthy.
works for a lot of things. You can rub it on you, you can swallow it.
It's good in
An
and out.
excellent stool softener. Excellent in and out, very good.
Yep. There's wherever you need it, it's good and good for you. So, yeah, if you have a question for us tonight, once again, that number is, and please don't tell us, profanity. It's 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. Sometimes they slip through. They're sneaky.
Sometimes they slip through, sometimes they're...
I have some interesting show and tell items tonight. I'm pretty proud of the ones this week. We have 2 very unique items here. 3, actually. 3 very unique items. Maybe we'll get camera 2 to roll in a little bit so we can get some close-ups of these nifty things. This one, I think, is really, really nifty. Come on in, camera 2. You can do it. This is from Seabury and Johnson. Seabury & Johnson is a predecessor of Johnson & Johnson, and it's a cannabis and salicylic acid, aspirin, a cannabis indica and aspirin topical application for warts and things. And actually, the topical part of it's still here. There's this big thing, and you're supposed to put this on your warts and your whatever you had, and it would make them come off, and it would help with any kind of skin inflammation you had. And so this is from Seabury & Johnson, predecessor of Johnson & Johnson. Then, so this, we have 2 items that are 3 items that are full. It's really unusual to get these things with the contents still in them. So we have 3 new items added to the ever-growing THCF medical cannabis container collection. This is the Seabury & Johnson one. Then we have this rheumatism and gout medicine. And this is full as well, if we can get a close-up on it. There it is. The liquid's still in there. It's rheumatism and gout. You're supposed to take a couple spoons of this. We have the box it came in. We have the insert it came with, which is kind of nifty. It's kind of historical. And we like that. And this is from the 1880s. The Seabury & Johnson thing is the 1890s, and this is from the 1880s, made in Ohio. Then finally, one last thing. From England, we have a corn medicine, and you take this, and it's got corn silk, and there it is, and it's got cannabis indica in there. And, there are about at least 50 different corn medicines that were made with cannabis indica from the 1850s and 60s all the way up to the 1930s. And in 1937, when they passed the Marijuana Tax Act, they put them all out of business. So that was the end of the proliferation of corn medicines made from cannabis. But it's a pretty interesting chapter in pharmacology here. And
shows what a wonderful topical ointment cannabis has always been.
Yeah, it is. And it's strange how the state of Nevada just passed this thing that just allows the topical application of cannabis. I mean, not Nevada, but New Mexico. New Mexico's law that they just passed there is only allows for topical application. It doesn't allow for ingestion or inhalation.
They sure don't want
and then you have to get your license renewed every 90 days. And then first, your own doctor has to write your recommendation. Then it goes, and that's reviewed by a board of doctors. You're supposed to go through that every 90 days to use it topically under this new law that just passed last week in New Mexico.
That ain't going to work.
It's pretty bizarre, isn't it?
It won't work.
Well, if you have a call or question for us tonight, call us there at 503-288-4448. I guess we do have a caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hey, hi.
Hello.
I've got a couple of questions.
Go right ahead.
I think it would be great for the viewers that are just tuning in for the first time to have you guys explain how Oregon used to be in the early 70s when possession was nothing more than a traffic ticket. So that's, if you could just sort of take a broad look at what that is. Also, I'd like to know from your perspective, what is the biggest obstacle here to going forward with legalization? I know that probably sounds really naive on my part, but I think it would be nice to know what we could do. And thirdly, what is the penalty for having less than an ounce in your possession?
Take those in reverse order. First of all, the penalty for possession of an ounce in Oregon is a fine of not less than $500 and not more than $1,000. It remains a traffic ticket offense, an infraction, and you won't have a criminal record for possession of less than an ounce in the state of Oregon. In Washington, however, it is a misdemeanor.
You need to tell me they can't put you in jail for less than an ounce.
That's right.
Oregon.
They can't put you in jail. They can't search your house for possession of less than an ounce. You can't be put in jail at all. You can just be fined at least $500. It was $100 at maximum up until 1997 when that fine was increased. Or actually, no, it wasn't 97. It was 94 or so that the fine was increased to a maximum of $1,000 and a minimum of $500. Overall, it's almost always a $500 fine, and it used to be $100. In 1997, the Oregon legislature voted to recriminalize simple possession of marijuana, and it was going to be increased from an infraction, but a group of us got over 60,000 signatures and stopped that law from going into effect. It was referred to the people. It had passed the Oregon legislature by a 2-to-1 majority, a little bit over 2/3, and the governor had signed it into law. We got the signatures to stop it, and we beat it and we won in every single county in the state of Oregon and got 68% of the vote to stop the recriminalization of simple possession of marijuana back in 97. It was a vote in 98, actually, ballot measure 57. And in that same year, 1998, they also got the Medical Marijuana Act, ballot measure 67, on the vote. So we had 2 votes then in 1998, one to legalize medical marijuana and one to stop recriminalization.
And then does the penalty go up incrementally a whole lot if it's over an ounce?
Under state law, it doesn't. It goes up pretty dramatically. Once you get over an ounce, once you get to 29 grams or greater, it goes to a Class B felony for simple possession. However, under Oregon's sentencing matrix, that generally means, you're put on probation or something.
I see.
Depending on if you're sold a lot, you might have to, and you had a great deal more than an ounce, then you might be put in prison by a state judge, especially in a rural county. But Oregon was the first state to decriminalize back in 1973, and it wasn't until 74 that California followed Oregon and decriminalized marijuana as well.
And what about sorry to add one more thing to this question, but what about number of plants on your property without any...
If you don't have a medical marijuana recommendation, under Oregon's law, simple cultivation of even one plant is a Class A felony, which technically is like the murder, rape, and those other Class A felonies. But, once again, under Oregon sentencing guidelines, it depends on how many plants you're growing, whether you were selling, those kind of things. Generally, you won't get much jail time. You'll probably be put on probation first time out. Now, if you go up to Washington, just across the river where this show plays in Seattle and Vancouver and Spokane, it's a simple possession of less than 40 grams is a misdemeanor, and there's a mandatory 24 hours in jail. Even if you're put in jail for 1 or 2 hours, they'll generally count that as a day, and you won't have to do any more. But there is a mandatory jail, so you have to spend some time in jail, and it can be, up to a day. Or if the judge sentences you to more. And once you get over 40 grams, then it becomes a felony under Washington's law. In Colorado, less than an ounce is also a $100 fine.
So what should we be working on, in a broad perspective?
You just have to watch. There's talk about initiatives all the time. I've heard talk about a county initiative to legalize marijuana here in the Portland area. I've heard talk about a statewide initiative. It takes education, though. Basically, we have to educate the people out there about the difference between methamphetamine and cannabis and how they shouldn't have, the way it is currently, methamphetamine is less of a crime than cultivation of marijuana. So it's a difference between a Class A felony for marijuana and a Class B felony for making methamphetamine.
Wow, is that right?
Yeah. Even though the sentencing guidelines don't treat it the same.
Mm-hmm.
The cannabis is fortunately regarded a little bit more sanely by the judges.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope something comes up here that we can
Stay
vote
tuned. We'll let you know as things go by. We do have a Million Marijuana March coming up on May 5th. That'll start at noon. You don't want to be late because once it starts, it won't be back for about 45 minutes. But that's one thing to get involved with. And there's other things. And just keep watching and come by our office and pick up our newspaper.
Okay, thanks for
Stay
your good
tuned.
work.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks
Good
for
call.
calling. A lot of pretty good questions there.
Good questions.
Well, you know, we have this film clip from 1942's U.S. Department of Agriculture's Hemp for Victory. So we're going to show that. We'll be back in just a moment.
Long ago, when these ancient Grecian temples were new, hemp was already old in the service of mankind. For thousands of years even then, this plant had been grown for cordage and coarse cloth in China and elsewhere in the East. For centuries prior to about 1850, all the ships that sailed the western seas were rigged with hempen rope and sails. For the sailor, no less than the hangman, hemp was indispensable. A 44-gun frigate, like our cherished old Ironsides, took over 60 tons of hemp for rigging, including an anchor cable 25 inches in circumference. The Conestoga wagons and prairie schooners of pioneer days were covered with hempen canvas. Indeed, the very word canvas comes from the Arabic word for hemp. In those days, hemp was an important crop in Kentucky and Missouri. Then came cheaper imported fibers for cordage, like jute, sisal, and manila hemp, and the culture of hemp in America declined. But now, with Philippine and East Indian sources of hemp in the hands of the Japanese, and shipment of jute from India curtailed, American hemp must meet the needs of our Army and Navy as well as of our industries. In 1942, patriotic farmers at the government's request planted 36,000 acres of seed hemp, an increase of several thousand percent. The goal for 1943 is 50,000 acres of seed hemp. In Kentucky, much of the seed hemp acreage is on river bottom land such as this, along the Kentucky River Gorge. Some of these fields are inaccessible except by boat. Thus, plans are afoot for a great expansion of the hemp industry as a part of the war program. This film is designed to tell farmers how to handle this ancient crop, now little known outside Kentucky and Wisconsin. This is hemp seed. Be careful how you use it. For to grow hemp legally, you must have a federal registration and tax stamp. This is provided for in your contract. Ask your AAA committeeman or your county agent about it. Don't forget, hemp demands a rich, well-drained soil such as is found here in the bluegrass region of Kentucky or in central Wisconsin. It must be loose and rich in organic matter. Poor soils won't do. Soil that will grow good corn will usually grow hemp. Hemp is not hard on the soil. In Kentucky, it has been grown for several years on the same ground, though this practice is not recommended. A dense and shady crop, hemp tends to choke out weeds. Here's a Canada thistle that couldn't stand the competition. Dead as a dodo. Thus, hemp leaves the ground in good condition for the following crop. For fiber, hemp should be sown 5 pecks to the acre. With drill, the closer the rows, the better. These rows are spaced about 4 inches. This hemp has been broadcast. Either way, it should be sown thick enough to grow a slender stalk. Here's an ideal stand. The right height to be harvested easily, thick enough to grow slender stalks that are easy to cut and process. Stalks like these here on the left, they yield the most fiber and the best. Those on the right are too coarse and woody. For seed, hemp is planted in hills like corn, sometimes by hand. Hemp is a dioecious plant. The female flower is inconspicuous, but the male flower is easily spotted. In seed production, after the pollen has been shed, these male plants are cut out. These are the seeds on a female plant. Hemp for fiber is ready to harvest when the pollen is shedding and the leaves are falling. In Kentucky, hemp harvest comes in August. Here, the old standby has been the self-rake reaper, which has been used for a generation or more. Hemp grows so luxuriantly in Kentucky that harvesting is sometimes difficult, which may account for the popularity of the self-rake with its lateral stroke. A modified rice binder has been used to some extent. This machine works well in average hemp. Recently, the improved hemp harvester, used for many years in Wisconsin, has been introduced in Kentucky. This machine spreads the hemp in a continuous swath. It is a far cry from this fast and efficient modern harvester to the Armstrong model of yore. But here's one kind of harvester, at least, that doesn't stall in the heaviest hemp. In Kentucky, hand cutting is practiced in opening fields for the machines. In Kentucky, hemp is shucked as soon as safe after cutting, to be spread out for retting later in the fall. In Wisconsin, hemp...
Okay, well, that's an excerpt from Hemp for Victory, which is a 1942 U.S. Department of Agriculture film. You can see that we've got somebody else here. How are you doing, Rico?
I'm good, Paul. How are you doing today?
Very well. Rico's a local comedian that has done some things at our hemp stock festivals, and we at our New Year's Eve party as well.
Yeah, that was fun.
Go on.
That was fun.
We do have a caller that's been standing by. Hello, caller. How are you?
Hello there.
Hello, caller. Are you there? No. No caller. Well, that's okay. You have an editorial for us, though, don't you, Don?
I do, Paul. I've always got something to talk about.
You do?
This one is, editorial is called The First Generation Lied To. The more I learned about the prohibition of cannabis, the more I realized the horrendous effects of this conspiracy. Because when they made marijuana illegal in 1937, in one fell swoop, they wiped out 5,000 years of accepted medical history. Suddenly, all of these preparations, these ones right here, that were useful, cheap, are now dangerous, illegal, and forbidden under penalty of law. What did they replace them with? Well, a myriad of patented chemical formulas that they can addict you with, and then, of course, charge you what they damn well want. By they, I mean the pharmaceutical companies, which I've come to call the pharma bastards. Because look what they have done to America. Seniors forced to choose between food and medicine, poor people with no medicine, Americans hospitalized and killed by the side effects of these pharmaceuticals, Americans addicted to barbiturates, benzos, antidepressants, painkillers, Americans used as guinea pigs in the testing of some of these medications. Remember thalidomide? Do you remember fen-phen, the diet drug? And don't forget about Vioxx either. I was the first generation of Americans that grew up after marijuana was made illegal. I was born in 1936. pot was banished in 1937, and sorrowfully I didn't get to smoke any that first year when it was still legal. The closest I came to, of course, was my mother's milk, which has anandamide, a cannabis-like substance. Of course, that changed my thinking because I grew up taught that marijuana was evil, it skewed my view of people that associate with it. That's the big problem, is it? It was those weird beatniks that hung out in San Francisco and played music nobody understood. And then there was the 60s, the hippies. And I was a cop in the 60s. And of course, they were told, and I was told, that pot would be the ruin of America. My mind was so poisoned that I was hoodwinked, and so I was hoodwinked so badly that I actually arrested people for a time or two for possessing marijuana. Only after I started smoking it in the 1970s, when I was a detective, did I realize, oh, they lied to me. Pot's great, not evil, and I must say I spent the last few years speaking the truth about marijuana, trying to make amends for some of the damage I did. Also realized over a period of time that when they took marijuana away, they sold me Nembutal. They took marijuana away and sold me Seconal when I first had problems sleeping with my PTSD. They took marijuana away and sold me Valium for my anxiety. They took marijuana away and sold me Celexa and Lexapro for my depression. Look in your medicine cabinet and see what's up there yourself. They sold you barbiturates or Valiums or Clonopin or Vicodins. You see, marijuana was used to treat cheaply and easy with no side effects these ailments that you see here. And viewers, they did it for the most culpable of reasons. They did it for profit, for greed, and for control. I think they realized that in America that could grow its own medicine themselves cheaply was not addicting, was America out of their control. They wanted to control Americans, and they were doing it with drugs. So they banished pot and rewrote history. They poisoned millions of minds, they imprisoned thousands of people, and now they have you all just where they want you, standing in line with your prescription pad and your hand waiting to be overcharged for the poison that you now must have. And will pay whatever they want to get it. For a politician to stand up and say marijuana has no medical value, like our president has done, shows that they are either ignorant or a prostitute of the pharmaceutical companies. It's a signal to me and a signal to you that these people do not know what the hell they're talking about. Wake up, viewers. Take a look at your history. Take your history back. Marijuana has been stolen from you. And that's the way I see it tonight, right down here on Hemp Street.
All right, thank you, Don. We have a studio audience member who has a question for us. Hey, Joe.
Well, it's not so much a question. I just wanted a lot of people to know that it's getting about time to put plants outside in the next couple weeks.
That's true.
The light's going to be getting, it's about 13 hours now, or it's a little bit more. So once it stops getting snow in the foothills is what old farmers used to say is planting season. So that's the rule I'm suggesting people follow. I just thought people would like to know that.
That's true. It's a good point.
For all those medical people who have fences that are big enough to do outdoor plants.
The best time to get it out there is going to be in mid-April, so you'd want to have your plants getting ready. We do have a caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hi. My name's Josie. I was wanting to know, my mom has glaucoma, so she's used cannabis for a long time. And then I recently found out they thought I was bipolar, but I have a nervous system disorder. They put me on an experimental drug, and then I found out I was pregnant, so I got off it, and it gave me seizures. After that, they upped the dose. And my mom told me to use cannabis to see if it would help, because it was giving me seizures to the point I was blacking out. And I stopped taking the drug automatically because I found out it will deform my child that they are making me take, because it's still experimental. And the cannabis helped, and I didn't have to take that drug anymore.
Right.
And I want to know if that is legit.
That would qualify you for a medical marijuana permit. It's the history of seizures.
Turn your TV down.
Yeah, you should turn your TV down, and you won't have as much background noise there. But definitely, seizure disorder and a history of seizures qualifies for medical marijuana in all the states that have medical marijuana. Okay, and yeah, there's a second delay in there too. All right, but that would definitely qualify. Thanks for your call. Okay, we do have a couple of things I want to announce for the folks who are getting ready for the Oregon Normal Medical Cardholders meeting. That's coming up on April 14th, and it's going to be at Liberty Hall in North Portland. It's going to be in Liberty Hall. Hopefully they'll be bigger. I know last month they were turning people away because there wasn't enough medicine and clones to meet demand, but hopefully this month there will be, and it'll be at Liberty Hall, and Oregon Normal is sponsoring that one as well. Rico?
Yeah?
You have something you want to enlighten us about? Your recent travails?
My recent travails. The DVD is, I'd say, this close to being done. It's a new DVD. It's going to be called My Whack Ass DVD. Please go out and get that. We were looking at January 22nd. We're going to push a couple things back. It happens. I don't have an excuse for it. But I actually, if you guys don't mind, if a couple of you guys want to call in, I'd love to do about 5, maybe 6 minutes of stand-up comedy. I saw Tim was gearing up to do some things. Is that correct, or?
Go ahead. You ready?
I can if I can have Tim's space. Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead. Is it topical?
It is.
All right.
It is.
You're live, man.
We do have a crowd. You guys doing okay? I'm not doing great. Usually I'm doing pretty decent. However, I just broke up with my girlfriend recently, and she when we broke up, she goes, "You'll never find anyone like me." And all I could say was, I hope not. That's the whole reason we're breaking up. I don't want anyone like you. I had a girlfriend that I dated at work, and that was the worst thing I could possibly ever do, because she became a stalker. But she was terrible at it. Like, I'd be leaving my house, and she'd be calling and texting, sitting in front of my house, and she would, like, when I leave the house, she'd, like, honk and wave. Terrible, terrible, terrible stalker. I turned 31 real recently, and I realized how old I was when my 2 gifts that I got were a really nice watch and some Depends. Yeah, those were from my girlfriend and my kids. Those are great people. Great people. Love you guys. Yeah, the locks will be changed tonight, so don't come home. I'm thinking about giving up comedy, honestly, just because, like, I want to be a rapper. Just because rappers, they get to do all kinds of things, like make up their own words. Like Yin Yang Tin, they came up with skeet, skeet, skeet. No one knows what that means. But I want to come up with all kinds of crazy words myself. Like, boogada. That's what I tell my kids when I catch them in the kitchen getting into the cookies. And they look at me and go, what? I go, boogada. And they jump off the counter and they run into their rooms. It works out great. It's better than spankings, I tell you what. I didn't come out here to do a whole lot of time. I just came out to hang out with you guys. So if you guys like me, give us a call. I'll see you guys later. My name is Rico.
All right. Thanks, Rico.
You're welcome.
We'll give you a shot. Okay. We have another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Is this me?
Hello.
Okay. My name's Wade.
Hey, Wade.
I just got a little story from about 20 years ago. I just thought viewers might be interested to know how the police conduct their busts, their raids.
Uh-huh.
I was entrapped, meaning a long-haired, greasy dude came up to me on the streets of Portland and asked to buy like an ounce, and throughout the course of the day kept asking if it could be larger and larger, and stupid as I was, it ended up being 2 pounds that I delivered to Vancouver, Washington.
Uh-oh.
And as soon as they busted me, they're driving me in the van to the cop station, and they're like, "Oh, this is rag, man, where's the good stuff?" And I'm just like, go find it yourself, So they really hammered me. A lot of other people got diversion. I fought it. I claimed it was entrapment down to like the last wire, and then I finally just copped to the thing, because I wasn't ready to go to prison for 5 years over it. But the part I wanted to say was the most interesting part for me was that the guy that set me up, the narc, was not an employee of the. He wasn't a cop. He was. A article came out about him a few months after this, but he was like a self-admitted heroin addict who worked the 3 Seattle, Tri-Cities, and Portland, and he would just work these areas until the cops got sick of him and these things started getting thrown out.
Right.
He actually set up a scam up in Hood River during the Depression of 1980, if anybody remembers that, and hired, rented a trailer and pretended to run a construction business and told people, like,
he was set up by the local
he would hire them if they got him some pot, huh?
So you were the victim of that guy.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is I was sitting there being arraigned and down in the basement, and this guy's like standing around, like shuffling around, and the sergeant or whoever was like booking me, like looks at this guy like such disgust, and just says, "What do you want?" Okay, and the narc dude goes, "Well, where's mine?" And he says, "Just take what you want out of there." And the guy reached in and grabbed like a big old fistful. But the thing was, is I delivered 2 pounds to him, and I was only charged with 1.
And there was probably about a half an ounce in the evidence locker.
That's the kind of thing you want to bring up to the judge. You know, oh, really, Your Honor, it actually was 2 pounds.
Right,
But,
right.
no, you know, it's just like Alice's Restaurant or whatever. It's like the justice blind to mirror.
That's the whole problem with marijuana prohibition. It leads to police corruption. People are entrapped who wouldn't necessarily, violate the law, and people, are looking for a job. In that case, I remember that case in Hood River, where people they put an ad out there. People came in for work, and this guy said, "Well, if you get me some marijuana, you can have a job." And so he busted a bunch of poor people who were out of work looking for a job.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's just. It's sickening. I do remember that story. It was.
It is. And just
that was
speaking of
in the
entrapment,
early 80s.
this is a separate issue, but it just goes to the heart of entrapment. There was when I was a kid in Washington D.C., the cops set up because a lot of bicycles were being stolen, right? So what they did was they took a bunch of bicycles out and left them unlocked, and then when kids would steal them, then they would like bust them. And one kid, the cops said halt, and he did, and then he shot him dead. I mean, they basically murdered the kid. They put something out there that he was going to take, and then when he didn't stop, they murdered him.
That's
talk about judge, jury, and executioner right there.
Well, I want to thank you for your phone call. We got
You're welcome.
move along here, but thanks for calling.
Yeah, you got it. Bye-bye.
Thanks. We're wrapping up here. Want to remind our viewers also that Oregon Normal has that cardholder meeting coming up on, it's May 5th, actually. May 5th at Liberty Hall. Is that right? May 5th? And then there's a meeting on April 14th at It's a Beautiful Pizza. And that's the normal quarterly membership meeting, and it's open to the public. They don't have it. It's not just for medical marijuana card holders. It's at a public place, and there's no cannabis at that event there. Yeah, May 5th is the Billion Man March. That's it. I can't see that sign too well. That's a problem. It's behind those bright lights.
That's right.
But anyway, anything you want to say in closing here, Don?
Hepatitis, people, I got it bad. It's getting worse. People that know me can see I'm getting sicker. Medical marijuana will help you. If you got hepatitis, come and get a medical marijuana card.
You got to keep eating, and if you don't keep eating, it just gets worse and worse.
Come over to my house, Don.
Yeah.
Yep.
We eat good in my house.
Eating good helps. For me, I've been cut back on it. It's a little bit too much there.
Then Paul, don't come into my house then.
Okay. I won't. For our viewers up in Washington, I want to remind you to call your state legislators and support Senate Bill 6032. That's Senate Bill 6032. If you live in Washington State, you want to contact your state representatives and state senators that work in Olympia, not the ones in D.C., but in Olympia, Washington. For our viewers here in Oregon, then we want to urge you to support Senate Bill 767 that would establish a state medical garden, and oppose Senate Bill, 465. Opposed to 465, favor 767. And so that's what we want to do here in Oregon. If you need a physician's referral, we have doctors who can help patients who have a qualifying condition. So call us and we can refer you to doctors throughout the western United States, in Oregon, Washington, California, Hawaii, and Colorado, coming soon to Nevada. So call us here in Portland. The number is 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. Up in Seattle, the Seattle number is 206-878-0700. 1701. There it is, 206-878-1701. If you're in Denver, the Denver number is 303-403-9996. That's 303-403-9996. And finally, for people who don't live in the big cities, we have a toll-free number. It's 1-800-723-0188. That's 1-800-723-0188. I want to thank you for watching. We're going to have Tim Pate close out with some more pictures from our THCF medicinal gardens. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp. Right on. Good night.
Right. Good night, Ramona.